Okay, this will be my first, hopefully, of many videos to come. Uh, the reason I'm doing this video, quite honestly, is because I am trying to find content on YouTube specifically um, regarding the purchase that I just made here in the beginning of the summer. I have been wanting to ride my own bike, motorcycle that is, for quite some time. And I went ahead and bought me one. Now, what I bought is not the typical, the usual, the Harley. Um, I wanted something that would fit. I sat on quite a few bikes, street glide, road glides. Uh, I even tried Kawasaki. For people that don't know bikes, I tried the Kawasaki's, and I wanted a cruiser. But not only did I want a cruiser, I wanted something that gave me a sport feel. Now, to be frank, we know that the BMW K16 is probably the best hybrid cruiser to date. Just by reviews, just by market status, bike enthusiasts, you name it. Most people, if they could get a hybrid or mix of both, that being sport bike and cruiser, they would go with the BMW. Myself, pockets, man. It's all about the pockets. You know, I'm an honest guy. I try to be as realistic as I can about what I can afford. I try not to live beyond my means. You know how that goes. Sometimes when you want something, and you pay the consequences later. But in this case, I just couldn't see myself shelling out that kind of money, being it was my first bike. So what I decided to do was go with the Yamaha. And Yamaha put out in production, I believe it was 2017, I want to say. They put out the Venture, the Star Venture and the Star ELUDER. Well, the Venture, not really my flavor. Of course, I wanted something that gave me a sportier feel. From what I understand, it's a great touring bike, but it just wasn't for me. So what I did was I started my search for the ELUDER. At the time I began looking, it was during the late uh, 2020 year, but little did I know they did not produce anything past 18. Now, for whatever reason, I'm not sure, but I had gotten so into the bike when I first saw it. I mean, you know, what they say about things that speak to you. The bike pretty much spoke to me. So I decided to go with that. And quite honestly, I am I have mixed feelings. I do. I have mixed feelings. The bike is an 1800 cc, basically 1795, I think it is. And a lot of people would say, well, Big Wheel, that's a lot for a first bike. Well, I'm a confident fella. What do you want me to say? I'm a confident fella. Not to mention I'm a big guy. So me starting on a Honda 900 or a Cow 750 or something like that, it's not me. It's just not me. I'm not saying, because I know better, I'm not saying that I jumped right on and I conquered the bike and all of that. Just like any other piece of machine, you have to learn it. So um, I've been out quite a few times, more so in the night. Um, a lot of people would say that's a little backwards, but for me, riding at night took me away from uh, traffic, for one. I'm here in Columbia, South Carolina, and the place is outgrowing the municipalities. So should I say, there's so much traffic here with very little room for the traffic to travel due to roadways and you know just being behind actually in the infrastructure. Uh, so I found that riding at night out on my country roads and some of those smaller towns gave me an opportunity to learn to bike. You know, I didn't have to go out there and wind it up and do all of that type of stuff. I just wanted to get the feel for the bike in general. Now, quite honestly, I do road construction. I lay asphalt. So I've had the opportunity to pick and choose my rides fairly well. Anywhere from Winsboro to Warrensburg, even further south. You know, I paved quite a few roads, so I had a little knowledge on where I could ride and where I should ride, and you know the volume of traffic and that type of stuff. So for you beginners, as you're out in your vehicles, your cars, your trucks, or whatever, just kind of pay attention to the volume of traffic. If you're learning how to ride a bike, if you got somewhere to train, then that's fine. But if you really want to know your machine, pay attention to the roads you drive, pay attention to the volume of traffic. You know, take the back roads sometime to see, you know, whether or not they're rideable. You know, that way you won't feel the pressure of traffic. You won't feel, honestly, the pressure of them blue hats. You know, them boys that's always out there looking for a reason. You know, they see you make a little mistake on your bike, whoop, lights go off, they want to pull you over, and there you go. You got a situation where now, you know, you got to timid about getting your bike out. So yeah, with that being said, here she is. I went with the black, honestly, because it was what was available at the dealership. My first choice was a silver, black red pinstripe, but the bike is so, it's not necessarily hard to find. It's just that in the area in which I'm from, you don't see these bikes come to these dealerships. Hardly ever. As of late, you're starting to see more of them pop up at the local dealers, but as soon as they come in, they're gone. I don't know if that is simply because it was only produced for a couple of years, or the fact that here in this area, it's just not a popular motorcycle. I would like to think that just because it's in this area, it's not a popular bike. As I said before, and it's no knock to Harley. I mean, you have to give credit where credit is due. The heritage that Harley has put out. I mean, I think it was, I'm not mistaken, it's an early 1900s bike, 1903 or 1901, one of the two. But anyway, Yamaha has a strong name. It's a strong badge as far as racing. They had a star line that people hung to and clung to for years as far as their cruisers. I believe Star Venture had been around for a while, and it got discontinued, but they brought it back to life, and they decided to do a little brother to the Continental Cruiser, and this being the little brother, the Star ELUDER. Again, it's very comfortable for the big guy. The only issue, and it's not really an issue, but the only problem that I had was the handlebars. It took me a while because I am 6'6", long legs, long arms. It took me a while to get used to these handlebars. They swing back pretty far, and I find that it took a while to get used to having my arms kind of, I guess the best way to describe it, at an encroachment. They're bent significantly well. They don't hang low, but the bars hang low enough for me not to have my arms stretched out. Again, this is my first bike. I'm not all that well versed in fit and finish, but as far as I'm concerned, that is my only issue. The foot pegs, foot rests, whatever you want to call them, the footboards, they're pretty wide. I am a size 14, so again, very comfortable, very comfortable. Not sure if you can tell. As a matter of fact, let me swing to the other side. I love the mirrors with the integrated blinkers in them. The only thing that I had to add as far as aftermarket were the auxiliary lights. It is not the GT version, which those come standard. The ones directly under my headlights were an add-on, but the ones down near the footboards, the auxiliary lights, those do come standard on the GT model. As well, on the GT model, you get CB radio connection, I believe satellite radio. What else comes on that? Well, pretty much the only thing that I add on was was my nav, which again comes on the GT package. It is a V-twin air-cooled engine, which at first I was skeptical due to hearing guys talk about how hot motorcycles can get. I know that Yamaha does not make this engine for this particular motorcycle in a liquid-cooled version. I wish that they would. I wish that they would have, but unfortunately they didn't. But to supplement for airflow, they incorporated, I don't know if you can see, an operable vent, which you can control with this lever to open and close your airflow, which is pretty intuitive. I mean, I guess you can say it gets the job done. The bike does get pretty warm, obviously, on hotter days. The engine heat is mostly felt on the left side of the bike. What I'm looking for is some sort of heat shield that may be aftermarket. Now, I know it's going to be difficult to come across because aftermarket parts for this motorcycle is so few and far between that you can probably find that list on one page in Yamaha's directory. I know they have an accessory to cover the bags, heated grips, heated seat is standard on the GT and the non-GT model. The windshield, I also added, it was a low profile windshield. This bike does come with the raised and lower windshield option, but it's only available on the GT. So by me being so tall, to cut down on some of that wind turbulence, I decided to put an aftermarket windshield on it, which raised it 6 inches, which is plenty actually. It shoots just to my forehead, which is fine. On those hot days, you need a little wind to come through, but it breaks it just enough to keep it from going under my helmet. Again, this is my first bike, and I'm trying to I found a forum online of guys that discussed different issues and topics and stuff like that about this motorcycle. But what I haven't seen is guys telling me if they found an aftermarket heat deflector. I got a buddy of mine who has a 3D printer. I plan to give him a ring to see if we can mock up, I don't know, some sort of heat shield made out of plastic. Obviously, a solid, thicker plastic. Putting metal on this thing and it's already hot, obviously, will be a no-no or a dummy move, so to speak. Quite frankly, they do have a slip-on for the pipes. I think Tab makes them, and they come in 3 different versions. You have the regular Tab slip-ons, the 2.5, and then I think one is just crazy loud. Due to the fact that I like to listen to my music as I ride, I'm not really sure about going with anything that loud. Obviously, it'll be a crazy feature for the bike, but I'm not interested at this time in listening to all that noise. Quite honestly, I like to hear my bike, but I don't like to hear my bike over my music. I like to hear my music, which, another topic, the infotainment system on this bike is, again, this is my first bike, but the infotainment system on this bike, to me, is pretty top notch. Let me just say that. It's pretty top notch. It's not one of those situations where you have to go through a whole lot of settings to get to what you're trying to find as far as your music and all of that. Connected Bluetooth, you cut the bike off, you cut it back on, it's right back to your playlist or your Bluetooth or whatever. So yeah, I think it's a pretty cool infotainment system that comes with the bike. It gets pretty loud. It's nothing obnoxious, although it can be, but I think that for the most part, I'm satisfied with it. I did have nav upgraded on this bike, or updated, because quite frankly, I mean, as you can see, I have a phone holder on the bike, but it's easier for me as a beginner not to be reaching for the screen, so I learned my knobs, my buttons on the handlebars. Again, pretty intuitive, pretty snappy, pretty quick. I like it. The only thing I'm thinking about doing as far as the infotainment system later on down the line is replacing the front speakers. They're factory, you know. You know how that goes. If you are a music enthusiast or you just like music in general, you want to get that premium sound. They do sound good, but I wouldn't call them premium. As far as I'm concerned, those Harley guys, again, no disrespect, I love what Harley is doing, especially after 2019. They're starting to add more color to their bikes. They're starting to add out of the box, nicer wheels, overall power. They're doing it pretty good. As far as I'm concerned, once I learn, I wouldn't say master, these machines are not to be taken lightly. Now, you do have guys that have been riding for decades. You know, you can call those guys masters. You can call those guys real riders. I mean, you know, just because you're not on a Harley, it doesn't make you any less. But when it comes to those guys that deal with those Harley bikes, you know, having the know-it-all as far as how to get around their bikes when it becomes to mechanical issues and stuff like that, I give them their kudos. You know, Harley in itself offers probably, from what I've seen, the most broad accessory catalog of any manufacturer, and that's like no exaggeration. You can roll up on a guy that has a Harley and notice 1 to 2 different things out of 500 motorcycles, Harleys, that you've seen previously, and it'll be something different. So with that, you know, I really wish Yamaha would have taken the time and considered the enthusiasts, especially, you know, the Yamaha fans that they have out there, whether it be for cruisers, sport bike, or whatever, and really just kind of allow people to make motorcycles their own. You know, of course, it's going to have the Yamaha brand, no different than Harley having a Harley brand, but it's something about customizing your bike to, I guess, accentuate your personality, I guess. But anyway, as far as I'm concerned, first bike, I like it. Just really wish they would turn on the accessory knob, the button. Hit the button. You could have hit the button with some aftermarket people. Reached out to some folks. I know it's a Japanese bike, but at the same time, you have a large market that you have to cover. Again, this bike was only produced for a couple of years. Maybe they felt as if it wasn't worth it, but you know, not everybody wants to be on a Harley. Just saying. Not everybody can fit a Harley. You know, after you buy a Harley for, I don't know, $20,000, $24,000, $26,000, you wouldn't want to be spending any extra on trying to personalize that bike. This bike I got used, honestly, for $16,900. Great price. The bike only had, if I'm not mistaken, I just got to 2,000 miles. I think the bike had 14 and some change on it. So it's just one of those things that I paid a good price for it. I wouldn't mind accessorizing it, but unfortunately, Yamaha didn't think out that far. They really did. Aftermarket sales usually is where guys make the bike their own. To make a strong brand, as Harley did, you want to give people that option. I do see, and I'm not tagging Harley or Indian at this point, but I have seen a couple of Indian motorcycles that really piqued my interest. The Challenger being one, but I'm really looking at the Chieftain. I noticed that they've been putting out parts, accessories to have guys kind of make those bike their own. You know, again, I like my bike. I wouldn't say I love anything other than my wife and family. But I really do like this bike. Hit me up in the comments below. Give me your thoughts. Give me some cues. Like and subscribe. This is Big Will. Help.